All right, and we are rolling. I have two good friends here today who've had crazy things happen in their lives. Most of the crazy stuff has happened to Rich.
I don't
Sarah's
know
new
about
to the
that.
crazy. Sarah's new to the crazy stuff. But Rich and I, just to give you guys a background, Rich Emberlin and I have been friends for a very, very long time. I met him when I was producing. We were on the set of this huge commercial, and he was there with a friend of his that was a producer who's also my friend. And so I'm thinking we've known each other like 15
At
years.
least.
Yeah. So it's been a while. Gosh, time flies. And then Sarah and I met doing a special project about 2 years ago, and we worked for about 6 months, and then hadn't talked to her in a while, and then she called with this like devastating news, and she said, "Carmen, do you know any really talented, really expert people in the police, law enforcement, military, anything like that?" And I was like, "Yeah, I know a few people." And she's like, "I need to find someone that can help me." And I'll tell you in a moment what it is that she needs help with. And so I sent out a few messages to the people I knew, a couple Navy SEALs, and then Rich Emberlin. And Rich was the very first one to reply.
Not a
When
Navy.
Go ahead, jump in. What did you say?
I said I'm not a Navy SEAL though.
Yes, that's right. And so let's go through. I'm just going to read Rich's just the first paragraph of his biography. It is or his bio. It is so long, and he's so distinguished, and he is a veteran of law enforcement for 37 years. And so you're retired police, but you're still actively training police
And
officers.
I'm an active reserve too.
Okay, and active reserve. But here's just the first paragraph. Rich Emberlin is a 37-year law enforcement veteran who served most notably with the Dallas Police Department elite units, including Dallas SWAT, which is Special Weapons and Tactics, and Criminal Intelligence Unit Dignitary Protection Squad. So what is that exactly?
We have an office up in intelligence, and we're called task force officers, and we have one for the marshals, and we'll give them, just for manpower's sake, we'll give them five of our detectives. And marshals are up there, CIA's up there. I was with the Secret Service. I'm just their
Okay.
local guy. So when we had presidential visits, and the Capitol Hill Police too, for congressmen and senators, I'm just the local guy because the presidential protection detail is not from Dallas, and they don't know what roads to go down, and we just guide them to the right hotels and their venues. And it's a
So
lot of
you
planning, but
protected
very enjoyable.
people like Clinton, who I ran into, and you saw me.
Yeah.
It was
I
really
counted them
funny.
up the other day. I've guarded 8 presidents. I never got to guard Reagan,
Oh, okay. Eight
and
presidents,
not while they were in
The Dalai
office.
Lama,
Dalai
it just
Lama
the
himself.
list is long how many people he has been a part of protecting. He was also assigned to the Office of Chief of Police as a liaison to the Department of Defense, which
Mhm.
would mean what would you be doing for that one?
I worked with CAG, which is Army Delta Force, and Naval Special Warfare, which is SEAL Team 6. And I didn't train them. I just facilitated their training because they can't train overseas because the bad guys will watch them. So I would just find them sites and say, hey, we need a place to park our helicopters. We need hotels. We need venues. And it takes about 10 months to get everybody to sign off on everything. So it's just a lot of planning.
Okay. And so Rich is also a veteran television personality.
Like,
He's
geez.
a subject matter expert, and most recently serving as in-studio analyst on the A&E documentary series Live PD. You also did Dallas SWAT, and a lot of people recognize you most from
Don't
what?
say it. Say it.
I mean, we might as well get it out.
Get it out.
So Rich is married to Leanne Locken, who was the infamous bad guy on Dallas Housewives, who the show just went completely flat after she left.
Did.
Yeah, and I mean Leanne's an actress, and so she knows how to create incredible drama. And she's a beautiful woman, and you guys are an adorable couple. And so welcome, Rich. And then
Thank
now we move on to Sarah. And Sarah is just this lovely person who's been a financial advisor for how many years?
In the financial services industry for over 20 years.
Okay. And you live this very normal life, but you were married to a police officer, or still are married
Still is.
to a police officer. Tell us kind of where the nightmare started. Give us kind of an overview of what happened.
Okay. So this was back in October of 2019. Jerry and I had recently purchased a home together, our first home together. At the time, we were married 13 years. And I was having girls over for like a girls' night in. And he was out at our local pub, a place that we have been going to for years and years and years. And everyone there knows us, knows him, knows he's a sheriff. So he was just hanging out, and one of the bar managers came running up to him and said, hey, there's some activity in the back parking lot. There are car burglaries taking place. People are breaking into cars, breaking into your car. So Jerry took him out into the front of the pub, where on the corner of that street is where the West Palm Beach police officers typically hang out. And he reconfirmed what he was told, and he told the eyewitness, to go tell West Palm police. He said, they're right there. Go over there and tell them.
And Jerry's a deputy, by the way. I don't know if that was true.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Jerry was a Palm Beach County Sheriff's deputy. Over a 20-year law enforcement history. So he sent the eyewitness who told him, pointed out the car, because it happened to be driving by at that moment, like driving right in front of him. He's like, oh, there's a car right there. The witness pointed out, so that's the guys, that's the car. Jerry says, go tell West Palm PD. And he followed the car. The car went out of sight. So Jerry decided to just go to the back parking lot and check on his car, because his car was one of the ones that was allegedly being broken into. So he's back there, and then the bar manager had followed him back there, and then it just happened that the car ended up pulling into the parking lot. And as it was passing by, the bar manager pointed it out and said, "There's the car again. Those are the guys." And Jerry's 20-year law enforcement. He has been on the road 20 years doing a midnight shift most of that time. He had literally been on the midnight shift the night before. This was his first night off. So he just reacted based off of training and experience. And he just walked up to the car, badge in hand, identified himself as a law enforcement officer, told them what they were alleged to have done. And it had some communication, some words, and the situation started to escalate. And Jerry did what his training time to do to extract himself from the situation. He was expecting West Palm Beach PD to come running around the corner because they'd been notified. He tried to flag them down as well by showing his badge. So then when they didn't, and he realized there's 3 guys in this car, they were communicating with a car behind him. He was in an L-shaped ambush. He was getting that sense that something was going on because there were some furtive movements happening in the car. So he did pull out his gun, and he put it into a sold position, which is pointing straight down. And as they started to engage with him a little bit more in the car behind him, he said some colorful language, cursing at them, and tapped the gun on the car to get their attention, break the OODA loop, they call it. And he told them to leave. And they said, why should we leave? He's like, just get out of here or else, just an open, it's called verbal judo. And Rich can talk about what those alpha commands are and what that means. but ultimately it was just to get out of a situation that was escalating so that nobody got hurt. His goal has always been everyone goes home safe at the end of the night. He certainly didn't want to get into an altercation, wasn't worth it over car burglaries. You know, he just pulled himself out of the situation. And the minute that was pretty much over, he's walking away. West Palm Beach does show up, and Jerry got detained, and they called PBSO. They showed up. It was
What's PBSO?
the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, which
Okay.
Jerry worked for. They came on scene, and ultimately he was let go that night with he thought it was an internal affairs investigation. He was on paid administrative leave. And then about a week later, he was arrested and formally charged with 3 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and then 1 count of using a firearm while under the influence. And what I believe was just a complete misunderstanding from the beginning has turned into this legal drama that has resulted in 2 trials back to back. Unfortunately, in the second trial, Jerry was found guilty of all original charges, and the judge has sentenced him to 9 years in prison. And we are at the appeals process today.
All right, so I'm going to ask layman's questions, and then we'll have Rich answer. So he literally never touched anyone. He pulled his gun out in a downward position, and he didn't shoot anyone.
No, didn't shoot, didn't point the gun at anyone. He never touched anyone.
Didn't
And
threaten to kill anybody.
he's going to jail for 9 years. And so when I called Rich, I didn't know, I don't know any of this stuff. And Rich said to me, give me their phone number and I'm going to talk to him and I'll be able to tell if he's lying or not. So I'll be in only if he's telling the truth. I mean, that's basically what you said to me, right?
I didn't know the alderman.
So give me the rundown on why in the world would he end up in jail for 9 years for just normal, police duty, it sounds like.
A miscarriage of justice. Everything he did, the colorful language included. You can't go up to suspected burglars. He didn't even detain them. That's the key thing here. He said, get out of here, and they weren't the right burglars. They just matched the car from the previous burglars, if I have that right, Sarah. And he said, get out of here. And did he use colorful language? Yeah, you have to sometimes. If you go up to a car burglar and he's 18 years old and you start calling him sir, as a police officer, you just elevated him.
Is it illegal
for
for
sir, they call me sir,
Is it illegal
I'm going to say, hey, dude, give me your driver's license.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Is it illegal for a cop to use colorful language? Can you go to jail for that?
No.
Okay. So even if he said the most horrific words to these guys that he wants them to get out of the parking lot at this pub, that's not anything that you would normally be written up for even.
Well, I mean, if somebody credible heard you say it, I don't think these 3 suspects are credible. The driver had a gun, the same kind of gun Jerry had. We never saw it, but turns out he had one when they got down to the station. But I've used colorful language. You have to be careful when you use it because you can end up in internal affairs. You're just going to get a slap on the wrist and say, hey, don't do that anymore. And okay, whatever. But you can go to the mall and cuss all you want. We've all heard people do that. It's not against the law. And sometimes it makes a point, put your effing hands up. He didn't say that, but I've said that. I walked up to cars full of people that weren't even suspected burglars in the middle of the night during the state fair with my pistol in my hand. And I had a uniform badge on. And I walked up and I said, hey man, can I see your driver's license? And the guy's like, sure, buddy. And I guarantee you, and I've told Sarah and you this, when I walked back to my car, everybody in that car went, that guy's pretty smart because we're all armed to the teeth and he's ready. They only have to be right once. We have to be right all the time in order to stay alive, So sometimes you don't do it routinely, but sometimes you have to.
Yeah. And so when you first called Jerry and Sarah, what were your initial thoughts?
The charges were so outrageous. I thought, is he telling me everything? And then Sarah sent me the videotapes, and I'm like, this guy didn't do anything wrong. I might not have tapped on the car, but they didn't charge him with criminal mischief or anything like that.
When you
You
say
know,
tapped on the car, what do you mean?
he took the barrel of the gun and just went
Oh,
tap, tap,
and
tap on the
yeah,
door, like very lightly. You
yeah.
know, most people would get mad about that and try to say, hey, he scratched my car. They didn't say that. They got to be able to drive back down to the station, get their story together, and cook up this, terroristic threat. He tried to kill us routine when he told them to leave. And I just went, that can't. And Sarah will tell you, I never argued. I just struggled with that. Can't. There has to be more, and there isn't. And he gets arrested he gets his gun taken away from him that night. And I don't have a problem with the cops doing that. Even
Right.
if you just have a little bit of alcohol on your breath. He was not drunk. They did not do a nystagmus test, which is the one where they do the eye thing. They didn't make him say his ABCs. They didn't make him walk a line. They came back a week later and said, you were drunk last week. And they didn't take blood. They had no proof. And that's when I went, okay, this has gone bad. And it's all the judge in this case and the prosecutor. And they're pals, and she is a prosecutor's judge. She sides with the prosecutors. I've seen cases where she's allegedly told prosecutors what to ask and just shut Jerry's attorney down constantly. And then she'll tell you, I came out there I zoomed in to be an expert witness. And sadly, I told him I'd do it for free. And I think when she heard that, he went, uh-oh, he's going to rip this story to pieces, because I know Florida law. I teach in Florida. I teach all over the country. And it's the law of the land, basically, except for general orders and departmental things. But you can't kill anybody in any state that I know of unless it's justified. So it's Congress makes laws, states make laws, cities make city ordinances, departments make SOPs or general orders. And did Jerry cuss? Yeah. Could he have gotten slapped for that? Yeah. But it just whirlwind out of control. And this judge is out of control, in my opinion. She just railroaded him. And I sat there waiting to talk on my Zoom call. And I think she looked at my resume, and I'm not bragging, but it's pretty extensive. I've been a cop for a long time.
Yeah.
And I know a lot about cop stuff. And I think she went, uh-oh. I don't know, Sarah, you can speak to that better than I can, but I think she didn't even look at me. And then they allowed them to have an expert witness, the prosecution, and he didn't have one. So he had to go on the stand, violate his own Fifth Amendment right, and testify against himself, basically, or have to testify. But that leaves the door open for getting in trouble, and it just, I would have spoken for him, and he would have never had to speak. Usually, there's a case going on right now where the guy is, but you usually don't. If you're the defendant, you don't speak up in the case. Just let everybody else do the work.
Right.
You'll be fine. It can only usually hurt you. And I don't think he said anything that hurt him. I think she decided before this trial started that he was going to jail.
And we'll never know. We'll never know why. But I also would like to point out that Ron DeSantis actually appointed her, which is really weird because her politics doesn't seem to match with his at all.
I don't think.
And I do think it's one of the biggest things that is a problem in this country right now. It's like this huge judicial failure, because it's like nobody's watching who the judges are. Nobody's paying attention to who's being appointed. Because think about it, you've only just begun the story. And already I'm sitting there going, I hope guys out of jail who had actual assault, where they were actually hitting people with pistols, or, stealing things from somebody. I never met anyone that murdered anyone or shot at anyone, but,
I had a prisoner in my
those
car
are
one
legitimate
time.
reasons to be in jail.
I
And
was
then
on my way
also,
to jail. I don't mean to interrupt, but I was on my way to
you're
jail with a
good.
prisoner in my car, and he knew me. His name was Dexter. And he goes, hey, look at that. And I looked over and I watched a man shoot another man in the chest over a parking spot in a liquor store parking lot down by our jail. And then the guy was drunk and he asked to pull out in front of me. And I'm like, really? And the kid was like, don't follow him. He's going to kill us. And I said, I have to. Right by the jail. He wanted to get out of the car and run into the jail, but I couldn't let the guy go. So we called the cavalry in, the helicopter and everything, got the guy pulled over, got him in custody. And about 8 months later, I went down for the trial at Dallas County Courthouse, and I was excited. You know, I'm a new officer, and I witnessed a murder. And I walked into the DA's office, and I go, I'm here for the whatever murder. And they said, oh, we already disposed of it. And I go, what do you get? You know, oh, we dropped it down to ag assault and gave him 5 years. He'll be out in 2.5. He had a stolen police officer's gun. An officer watched him murder somebody, and he got 5 years just because it's easier to go, we can really prove aggravated assault. Can we prove he intended to murder him? Well, I think pointing a gun at a guy's chest is intending, but who knows? But that's where the system's broken. It's broken for cops more so than citizens. You know, everybody. If I get in trouble, like the title says, I'm guilty until I can prove myself innocent. And that is true in every case.
Every cop. Yeah. And it's sad because I don't look at anything other than evil. You know, that was an evil act. And I just don't understand why this judge would do that. And I also don't understand how you can go arrest somebody a week later for being intoxicated when you have no testing, no blood, no breath, zero. I mean, to me, that in itself is just insane. And so, what's going on in your head, Sarah, when this happens? Do you think, oh, this is just really weird? Or like at what point did you go, this is serious?
Well, when he was arrested, I knew it was serious. But the more we looked into what had, as the case develops and you do discovery, you realize that some things were not handled the way that you would expect, especially since Jerry's been on the side of law enforcement, so he knows how the process works, how it's supposed to be handled. And there's just so many things that were not done correctly at the scene. For example, so the whole incident between Jerry and the three men in the car, no longer than a minute, less than a minute. It was all captured on a parking lot video. And the parking lot video shows that there were burglaries. It wasn't these guys, but there was a very similar car in these. So there's video proof of the burglaries, and West Palm Beach never investigated them, which would have been exculpatory evidence for Jerry. So those weren't investigated. They let them drive together in the car, like Rich said, down to the station to get their stories together. And then, then you start the legal process of, motion filings and things of that nature. And there seems to be a pattern. And this is another problem with the system is, the defense is supposed to put on there, it is supposed to be able to put out any information that they can to prove innocence. I know ultimately it's the state has to prove that the person is guilty, but ultimately you're allowed to put on your side of the story, your case. Jerry was not permitted to put on his side. He was not permitted through several motions to suppress and motions in limine that the state attorney's office would file, and the judge would typically approve and grant them right before the trial would begin. And that's what happened the first time she permitted or she granted the order that Jerry was not allowed to discuss the burglaries, bring them up, basically not explain how he got there, why he was there, why he was talking to them, and just kind of wanted him to just show up at the car and like, poof, there he is, and he's engaging. And so when that ruling came down, we knew we were in trouble, because how do you explain his actions without him getting on the stand, which you try to avoid? That's when we said we need an expert to explain Jerry's training, his experience. And that's when Rich came in, thank God. I think
does how Rich had told me a while back that you know, a lot of times there are bad cops, and
Sure.
they usually make mistakes early, like within the first 2 years of them being police officers. How long was your husband a police officer, and did he have any previous situations?
At the time, 17 years. He has had a few internal administrative matters that have
We
come
all
up,
have.
like late report, an argument with a supervisor, you know, not filing things on time,
Right.
nothing related to like an altercation or something that would be of this nature, you know.
Or a
Criminal.
dirty cop, or, you know,
No,
yeah.
no,
And so,
nothing.
Rich, I would love to hear your opinion on that one. Did you did you ever get written up?
Yeah, I sure did. I mean, it comes down to personalities usually,
Mhm.
jealousies. People hated guys in SWAT, and I can remember getting written up for wearing the wrong shirt on a call out. We're supposed to wear long sleeve shirts because we use tear gas, and I had a t-shirt on. And this guy found some obscure law because he was mad at my partner and wrote me and him up for having the wrong shirt on. I mean, just stuff like that. And I left my car running one time and my battery was dead after a vacation. And the chief over SWAT came up and stole my car, drove it around to try to scare me. Then he brought it back and he goes, "Why is this thing running?" And I said, "Well, it's on police property. Nobody else can get on here." He goes, "I don't want to see a story in the paper about my car being stolen.
Mm.
You're going to be written up." He goes, "Now go have
Okay.
your supervisor write you up." Well, I was the supervisor that day. So I went up there. I said, "I decided not to write me up." He said, "Why?" I said, "Because I'm the supervisor." So I pissed him off. So I got in trouble for being insubordinate, but it was, I mean,
Yeah.
it stayed on my record for 36 weeks and that was it. And he and I are friends and he thinks it's
Right.
funny. I think it's funny. Sarah left out that this court doesn't allow. Okay, Jerry trusted the guy that told him about the car burglaries.
Oh, that's
He's a
true
trusted
too.
witness. And you have to have, I don't think, um, what's that judge's name? Don't say it, I'll say it. She's a
And keep-
15th Circuit Court. Sarah. What's her name?
She's like,
Shepherd.
don't tell me your name. Do tell me your name.
Shepherd.
Shepard. I don't think she paid attention in law school on the day they taught law when it talked
Allegedly.
about reason. That's my opinion. I
Yeah,
don't think
okay.
she did.
Yeah.
You have to have a reason for contact to talk to anybody. You just can't go up to somebody and we call it jacking them up and patting them down without having something that you can articulate. Like, I saw him involved in a possible drug transaction,
Right.
or somebody I relied on told me those are the guys.
Right.
That's a reason for contact.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a third world country, and it happens in third world countries. I have a friend from Poland who hates being in Poland. He got put in jail for 2 years. He's a Navy SEAL. He's first SEAL to go to jail for 2 years before he became a Navy SEAL because he was just talking about capitalism. And they just
Oh.
came up and rolled him up, put him in prison for 2 years. So they don't have constitutions. And Jerry and I enforce the Constitution, but we're not really protected by it as much as the average citizen. You know, people always come to me and they're like, "Man, it must be cool to be a cop. You can shoot anybody you want." I go, "You can shoot more people than I can. I've got these things called departmental rules besides, Chapter 9, which is the deadly force policy. I have to follow all kinds of rules, and I don't want to shoot people, and neither does Jerry. But when we do, and I followed all the rules. I didn't break any policies, and it was tragic for everybody involved,
And it creates a kind of a PTSD, doesn't it?
Sure. How can it not?
I know. And this is, taking the life of someone who's doing harm to others.
My guy was killing his 3-year-old son in front of me on a hostage rescue, and he did kill him. And if you don't think I think about that every day, people are like, "Are you over it?" And I'm like, if I was over it, there'd be something wrong with me. Then of course I think about it every day. I don't like the guy that did it. And I wish I could have been a little bit quicker, but my supervisors messed that all up. It's a whole
Did the
different
3-year-old live?
No.
Oh, man.
I had to roll the dad off of him and pick up this limber 3-year-old dead baby and hand him out the window. You don't forget stuff like that. And I'm sure Jerry's been involved in similar things like that and seen stuff like that. And That's why you pull your gun out when you walk up to some guy.
Yeah.
We've all had friends killed. In 30 years, I had 31 colleagues killed on the police department. 5
Wow.
in my first year over the course of the year, and 5 in 20 minutes on my last year when we had that big shootout in 2016. So that's the bookends of my career. People like shooting cops and they don't care. And
Well,
you just,
Go ahead,
sorry,
Sarah.
don't mean to interrupt, Richard. It is an important point to bring out that the alleged suspects or victims in the car,
subjects.
they pulled out during the less than a minute, about 25 seconds in to it. The driver pulled out his cell phone from his pocket, and he had a gun in his pocket, but he also had a cell phone.
Mhm.
And that's the furtive movement that Jerry was seeing, which alerted him to, something's going on. So he pulled his cell phone out to start videoing Jerry.
Right.
And
That's
Jerry
all.
didn't know he was being videoed, but that he put, that kind of movement is what triggered him to understand something's escalating here. They're not listening to me. They're not paying attention. And it easily could have been the gun,
Right.
as opposed to the
cell phone.
phone. So
Definitely.
Yeah, furtive gesture like that is like watch any cop show, like a real live one, like Live PD or Cops, and you click on your red lights to pull somebody over for running a stop sign, you think, and all of a sudden you see them digging down in the floorboard. You don't know if they just robbed a bank. You think you're writing them a ticket for running a stop sign, and they may have just killed somebody.
Yeah.
I've lost friends that way.
It's horrible. It's horrible. And so yesterday, Rich, you were talking about how Jerry was in a kind of a catch-22 situation. in that particular situation, he'd be damned if he did or damned if he didn't. Can you
You're
kind of
duty
share?
bound to go out and investigate. We're on duty 24/7, 365. And when someone says those burglars are back, and if Jerry would have went, I don't care, he's damned, because the people who got their cars broken into are going, that guy, he's a cop and he didn't even lift a finger. But if he goes out there, he can also get in trouble. So that's just the world we live in
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah. No, that's so true. And then you also mentioned that there was city cops and county cops and how they sometimes don't get along. And so I think Jerry was a county officer, and then the West Palm Beach are like the city cops. Is that correct?
yes.
And so share a little bit about that dynamic.
Richard, you'd probably be better to speak on those.
It's very,
those
I'll tell you
dynamics.
what, it's very common. They're, in Dallas here, we get along great with our sheriff's department. They run our jail. We take our prisoners down to them. They house our prisoners. We get it. We have a great relationship, but I teach all over the country for defense technology or Safariland, and I'll meet county guys who just, it's like gangs, they just hate city guys and vice versa. It's like two dogs that don't like how they smell, it's a lot of jealousy too, and county work, and Jerry's a victim of this, is so political. If you want to fire me from the city of Dallas, you've got to do so much paperwork. But in a county, they can just walk in and go, hey, Jerry, hit the road, Jack. What for? You parted your hair on the wrong side today. Seriously, they can do that. I've seen it done. Not that
Yeah,
ridiculous,
I knew,
but
I knew
they
you were
can.
kidding. Yeah, that totally makes
So
sense.
there's a little animosity. Not in most cities and county relationships. Most get along really well, because the city cannot do without the county. So the county Dallas County, which has 1.2 million people in it, can go over to the city and tell the police chief, you're no longer doing police work. We got it. They'd never survive. They don't have enough people. So we're doing their work for them, and they understand it.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
That makes
but it's their county. They can override us on anything because it goes back to the old West,
Right. Yeah. And so, Sarah, there's so many things that when you were breaking it down for me, it's almost like you need a flow chart. But one of the things that really stood out to me was that you have a full video. You have a video that his gun was down. You have a video that he wasn't aggressive, that he tapped, not like punched the window out. It was never pointed towards them. You know, he seemed to be patient. Was that allowed into evidence?
They allowed the parking lot video, which was, it's parking lot video, fairly grainy, but you could still see to some degree. We did have the video enhanced slightly just to make it larger so you could focus in on Jerry's hand movements, so it was easier to see what he was doing. We actually had a side by side of the parking lot video and the video that the individual, the driver, took.
Right.
So you can see real time what was going on, you know, side by side of what, you know, what Jerry did exactly. And that our videos and additional videos that would have from the scene that would have been helpful were not permitted in the trial. So we were without a defense as far as explaining why he was there and what he did. We couldn't have a expert witness. We couldn't have our videos. It was we were just hampered all the way up to the very end. And Rich was not permitted on the eve of the first trial.
Yeah, so let's share that story. That was pretty shocking to you, Rich, wasn't it?
It really was, because I was loaded for bear, because I read the laws in Florida and the ones he was charged with, and he didn't do anything wrong. The guy, it was a 1 minute altercation, not even altercation, 1 minute interview.
Yeah.
And now it's 1 minute and 9 years, you know, and it's because she's anti-cop. I've read other articles about her. In my opinion, she's anti-cop. I've read other articles about her where she's suppressed defense evidence from people and got them prosecuted. And here's the thing. We talked about this yesterday. I was in a court trial one time and I got accused of lying. And it was just a hand-to-hand dope buy. I went over to a fence, through a hole in the fence, saw a guy. He handed me some crack. I knew his name. I saw his face, and I went back the next day and bought another $50 rock. And the prosecution said, you know, they do that whole, who's in this courtroom that did that? And I go, that guy in the suit. He wasn't wearing a suit that day, though. And they found him not guilty on the first one because I was honest. I said, I didn't get a real good look at his face, but I heard his voice, and I'm pretty sure it was him. And then I said, on the second buy, they found him not guilty on that one. And then we went straight into the next one. It was a trial before the judge, no jury or anything. And he said, what happened on the second one? I said, I looked through and I saw his entire face and I know exactly what it was. And he talked to me, called me by my name, and sold me a crack rock. And he berated me. He said I was lying on the first one. I wasn't lying. I said I didn't get a really good look at him.
Right.
And I think jurors, when you just look over a jury and say, I didn't really get a good look at him, it makes you more believable, because I knew I had another one where I had him dead to rights. And this judge found me in the elevator and he said, don't you ever lie in my court again. I said, Judge, I didn't lie in your court. I said, these prosecutors can get up there and lie all day long about things I did and no ramifications at all. I go, how is that? How can I get charged with, and he didn't charge me with perjury because he knew I didn't lie. He was just pissed. I said, how can you charge an officer with perjury, but you can't charge a prosecutor or even a defense attorney when they lie in their closing arguments? He goes, we don't ever swear them in. And that's,
I never thought of that until you told me that yesterday. And I thought, wow, they can insinuate.
This judge can lie. Their defense attorneys can lie. The prosecutor can lie. Jerry never lied, but if he did, he's going to get shackled up. And I can tell you he didn't lie because he didn't get shackled up for lying.
Oh my gosh. It's crazy.
It's ridiculous. I just think everybody should be held to the same standard.
Yeah. And another interesting point about the investigation, the detective that wrote the probable cause affidavit, he never watched the parking lot video. So he just took the statements of the three individuals as fact, and that's what the charges were based on. Now, the state attorney had an opportunity to review all of the videos, which, videos don't lie. So
No,
my opinion is that the state attorney's office suborned perjury by putting them up there and letting them testify.
that is perjury when a guy does an affidavit and he didn't pay attention to detective work at detective school that day, because you can't do that. We've had guys get in trouble and serious perjury trouble for just their boss said, hey, file these cases. Well, I'd like to just file them. I would disobey that order and say, no, I'm going to look at this and look through it because I can go to jail. And we've had people not necessarily go to jail, but get fired for just doing what their boss told them to do without going, hey, man, that's not a legal order you're giving me.
Right.
It has to be a legal order. And I need to detect everything. My wife hates it when she goes, how did you know that? I go, I detected it because I'm a detective. I detect everything. I look at everything, just even when I get to a shooting and I've got a dead guy and a guy standing there that just dropped a gun, I'll go, okay, what happened? You got to keep an open mind. You don't know what this guy just did. He could say, that guy just killed my wife in the bedroom,
Right.
Okay, fair enough. Or he could say, he's an ass and he just came into my house, and that's not fair enough. You just have to keep an open mind, and this judge does not. She has a thing against cops, and I think men in general, in my opinion, but they need to take her off the bench. I don't think DeSantis really knew who he was picking when he picked her.
Yeah, I hope not, because that's nasty. So let me reiterate this. And from what I'm hearing, the prosecutor is aware that there's a video, saw the video, knows what really happened, put that out and aside, built an affidavit based on what those two guys in the car said, and then had them go on to the witness stand knowing that they weren't telling the truth because the video proves that they weren't.
Correct.
Wow.
The tape don't lie. They don't have any still pictures of him pointing a gun. It's like they had them. I'm sure they would have produced.
They would have used it.
Yeah.
That's a really good point, Rich.
And there's variations in the story of the three guys. He pointed the gun at them once, he pointed it at them twice, he pointed it at their heads and said he was going to shoot them.
Didn't happen.
There's no gun pointing towards at their heads inside the car. Plus, as close as he was, he wouldn't have been able to without putting his hand inside the window, and that would never
or backing up. Yeah, one of the two.
I've told Sarah this before. He said, just get out of here and don't come back. I've told people, I don't say, get out of here or I'm going to kill you, and neither did Jerry. I've taken it away a step farther than Jerry has. I've looked at suspects before and said, if I see you one more time, it's not going to end the way you think it's going to end. And he knows what I mean by that. But I'm not threatening to kill him.
Right.
I might pat him on the back and buy him a hamburger. Maybe, probably not.
Or go to jail.
Yeah. But, or go to jail. Or if it's seriouser than that, whatever. But Jerry this guy's sitting in the can for nothing. And he gets a hung jury, if I'm right, Sarah.
Oh, yes, the trials in and of themselves.
This is the biggest tragedy.
A whole other matter. So we get to through the first trial, the jury is hung, and the judge upon the hung jury says, "Okay, jury selection tomorrow morning for the second trial." And upon that, our attorney said, "I'm sorry, Your Honor, but I can't because I'm withdrawing as counsel."
So now he has no counsel, and he's got to go do voir dire by himself.
Why does the attorney want to recuse himself, or whatever that word is called?
That's a good question. He never really spoke to us after that, even though. So instead of starting jury selection the following day, the judge had to continue it to have another hearing. We ran out and got an attorney on short notice just because we thought Jerry would have to defend himself and that actually, be his own attorney.
Wow.
And figured that, okay, we get a new attorney, we'll get a continuance, we can get everyone up to speed. That's not what happened. The judge at the hearing did not dismiss our attorney who wanted to withdraw, so forced him to stay on unpaid, allowed the new attorney to join who had 3 days to prepare. And the second trial started, and so our first attorney wasn't talking to us because he wasn't getting paid. He wasn't cooperating with the second attorney who knew nothing. The second trial was a complete circus. I mean, I've had a lot of attorneys review the transcripts, and they've never heard of a back-to-back trials like that. And they've never heard of, that kind of behavior being permitted in the courtroom, because it was ineffective assistance of counsel. They practically admitted it themselves because they weren't getting along. And we tried to get the case stopped in the middle of the trial, and judge said no. So unfortunately, he was found guilty on all original charges. He had a jury. His first jury was a fairly diverse jury of men, women, and all different backgrounds. The second jury was just women, just all women, which was strange. It's not a jury of his peers either way. There was no anyone there that had, was a law enforcement officer. So, and then she, upon finding him guilty, remanded him to jail and he was in jail for 5 months before he was sentenced. And he has no criminal history. There is no reason he shouldn't have gotten bond pending the sentencing. And then when she sentenced him for 3 years for each felony and has him serving it consecutively, which is, there is case law that says that that's not permitted. He should have been doing it concurrently so that
Shouldn't have been doing anything, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah, serving it all at the same time. And ultimately, if we could even get the sentence fixed, he would probably get out before we get the results of the appeal, because 3 years, he's already been in for 10, 8, 9 months now. By the time the appeal goes through, it's going to be a year or two, and he would be out. He would be out before the appeal we get the results of it, if he was sentenced properly or according to what you would expect.
Sentencing guidelines.
So like the suspicious me looks at this and goes, it's really weird for an attorney to recuse themselves like that day without any explanation. Where did he find the lawyer?
We found it through friends.
Okay, so it was somebody that was, like legit. It's not some nefarious setup.
That's not
Like
something
the cops didn't tell him. The cops didn't tell him, or I don't know. I was just curious because I just get so protective now of humans, especially people that are being literally railroaded. And so I just wonder, like, why would that happen? Why would a cop do that? It makes no sense. Or why would a lawyer do that?
Because they can. And,
Yeah.
I will tell you, no cop hates a bad cop more than a good cop. Jerry's a great cop, and he didn't do anything wrong. It got to the point when he started explaining his case to me, I'm like, have you had a run-in with this judge at some point and pissed her off?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I don't know who she is. And she's just running amok down there in the 15th Circuit.
Well, and apparently he's not the only one, which makes it even more terrifying. And here's the thing is, people that are watching this don't think this could happen to them, that this could happen to their family. Tell us, Rich, the reality of it, even if you're not a cop, what's going on in the judicial systems.
Chief Brown, who's now Superintendent Brown in Chicago, and a good friend of mine, he said, and it came as a shock to me because I really didn't think the system was broken until recently. We put one of our officers in prison, a female officer who went to the wrong apartment door that she thought was hers after work. She's in uniform. She's got groceries. She's on the phone with her boyfriend and her door's open. And she's like, what the heck? So she pushes it open and there's a dude in there. And the apartment layout is exactly the same as hers, which is one floor up. And the guy
I've done
jumps
that
up and
before.
runs at her, Botham Jean. And
Tried
he
to
runs
open
at
the
her
wrong one.
and he runs 39 feet and she pulls her gun and shoots him and then turns on the light and goes, oh my God. And you can watch the video. No one's more shocked than her.
Yeah.
But our DA said that girl's going to prison. And she is. Saw her mugshot this morning when I was doing some research for this.
Yeah, it's just so sad. I've done that. I've lived in a building and gone to the wrong floor and
I
tried to
do
get
it at
in and like,
hotels
what
when
the
I
heck?
travel. If I work
What's
back to back, I'll go to the wrong floor the next week and stick my key in that run off because I'll think the person thinks I'm
It's so
breaking.
embarrassing. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
It's horrible. But normally the doors are locked, you know. I've done it
Yeah,
probably
your key's
3
not-
times in my whole life where I've gone to the wrong door. And so, okay, so then the next thing was what was the other thing that you were just talking about? It was the lawyer, and then there was another thing that you were talking about that was another like, oh my gosh. Oh, the no bond. He literally had no opportunity to be free and to be proven guilty. He had to stay in jail. What was their reasoning behind why do they think he's so dangerous that he can't have bond?
She didn't give a reason at the trial. She just remanded him. We did have another hearing requesting bond after he was sentenced. We requested bond again pending the appeal, which she denied, stating that, you know, basically we didn't have enough ties to the community because we don't have children and we are he doesn't have
Like risk.
the law. I mean, there was all of these, it's very flimsy, in my opinion, arguments that, like, he's a 20-year law enforcement veteran. He has no criminal history. He was out on bond pending the trial for 2.5 years. He didn't run.
Right.
We had discussed plans to like possibly move closer to my parents when this was all over with. And she used that as a reason when this is done, not that he was gonna
Right.
take off.
Of course.
So yeah, she didn't allow that. She did a lot of things that were very odd. Even between the first and the second trial, because of the hung jury and our multiple change of attorneys, we asked for the jury verdict form because there was an understanding that it was like 5-1. And we wanted to get clarification on where that 5-1 landed. And we asked for the jury verdict form, and she refused to produce it. It wasn't in the court records. It wasn't in which it should be. And we had a hearing for that, or, asked a motion to produce it. And she said, no, not only am I not going to produce it, you're not allowed to talk to any of the jurors from the
You
first
can make
trial.
them stand up.
Okay,
and
so
say what they say.
so comment on that, Rich. So she put that in a different, like, more layman's terms.
When she said, I want to know where they fell, guilty, not guilty, the judge can say, juror number 1, and they stand up and go, guilty. Juror number 2, and they stand up and say, not guilty.
Got
And they'll tell you right to your face. You have every right to have that. Or if not that piece of paper, if they're gone,
Right.
that says where they landed. And one thing we're forgetting is the amount of money the aldermans have had to spend on this BS case because of this vindictive judge, who just, I don't know what her deal is, but she's got a problem, in my opinion.
Yes.
And
Keep
I
saying
would
that.
be deathly afraid to go to Palm Beach and end up in her courtroom.
What would you call that? Like, because I'm making a list here of all the things that he was not allowed. And what would you call that, that exchange when you ask the jurors or when you see the piece of paper? What is that called? He had no right.
Polling the jury.
Okay,
Yeah,
no
pulled
jury
it.
poll. No jury poll. Thank you.
The jury was polled, but they weren't polled in the courtroom
Right.
like on the official court record, but that polling is part of the record behind the
Yes.
scenes to get to the jury verdict form, which didn't get filed. And the reason being, we just wanted to see where they landed, because he was charged with, there was lesser included misdemeanors that they also put on there. So they had, they could select what he was charged with, or there was these lesser included. So had they all agreed that they didn't think he'd committed the felony, that they were stuck on a misdemeanor, then that could possibly be double jeopardy. And we wanted to see that. And we did get confirmation that they were hung on misdemeanors, and somebody wanted to acquit him completely in the first trial. The judge said that, spoken on the record in one of our motion hearings between the trials, but we couldn't go any further because she didn't allow us.
Wow. And so also you said something yesterday about chain of custody, and that there was no chain of custody. Do you know?
The cell phone video. So the cell phone video that was used, that's the thing that made this go like viral. That went to the news. So it pretty much got convicted in the news and the media before the trial ever.
I was going to say, yeah, we need to back up to that where he was guilty before he went to court, according to all the West Palm Beach papers and the judge and all city leaders. It's like, and I can't stand that. I don't think that Minneapolis St. Paul guy should have gotten off, but even the president said, if he gets off, I'll stick the FBI on him and charge him with civil rights violations. He's guilty. Guy just killed the guy. I think he killed him. But he had just killed him a couple hours earlier, and you got the president saying you're guilty?
Right.
Give me a break.
Yeah.
So that video that on his cell phone, they never took the cell phone. So there was no chain of custody on that video. And that was like it was a big point of evidence in the trial. They just kept playing it over and over again. And I don't know that they played it in their entirety. We'll never know what, if it was modified, or what if he had recorded prior to what they showed that would have proved that Jerry never did point the gun at them. We won't know,
right,
because the cell phone wasn't taken into cut. They didn't take it in. They didn't do a forensic review on it to make sure that the whole incident wasn't captured.
Right. And those guys actually were just told, meet us at the station. They weren't put in a cop car and taken there and had their things removed, etc.
Yeah, they said, go drive to the station to make a report. So they all got in the same car, drove together.
Which makes no sense either. That just makes no sense.
If all these things were true that aren't true against Jerry, he would have been arrested for public intoxication, had his gun taken away from him, charged with the 3 felonies, put in jail, and had a bond hearing. But none of that happened. This week-long wait to charge somebody with being drunk. I could have been drunk last week. You can't prove it, You can't even prove it if you have a video and you see me fall over. So that's got one eye, I don't have a good balance. It's just ridiculous if it was followed and that phone would have been taken, because chain of custody is not something to be taken light. I take a gun off of a guy and I put it in a custody evidence bag with a number, and I put it in the property room, and it's signed for, and then the detective will come by later and sign it out, and somebody else watch him sign it out, and he'll take it to his office, and then he has to bring it back and sign it back in. It's very, very important on stuff like that.
Right.
Whether it's a pencil or a phone or a gun or a knife.
Yeah. And then I was really sad, Sarah, when Rich finally, was declined as an expert witness, wasn't even acknowledged, wasn't talked to, you were just, it was like your screen didn't exist, and I remember Rich saying, Carmen, he goes, I've heard, in my cop life, I've heard of cops being railroaded. But this is the first time I've ever seen it firsthand with people that, I have access to. why don't you both give me your opinion of what a railroad is? And I would love to hear Sarah's opinion as the wife of this police officer who is literally in a horrific jail in Florida right now. And then I'd like to hear your opinion, Rich, on, just the cop version of what that means to you.
So railroaded, in my opinion, is that he didn't have a chance from the very beginning, because once the decision was made, everything was put in place to make sure that the guilty verdict was going to come out regardless of the evidence. So whether it took suppressing things or not allowing certain things into court, basically not allowing him to tell his story whatsoever, they used the media to already, infect the population with the fact that they're saying he was guilty of what he did. And, they literally handcuffed him and they put tape over his mouth. He couldn't tell why he did what he did, or else he would have been in contempt of court. And they used every law strategy, everything that they could against him. They didn't give him the due process that he deserves. So to me, it's a complete railroad, because there was nobody there flagging any of these things, saying this is wrong, you can't do this. There's no oversight over the judges once they make these decisions. You just have to go through the appeals process, which is expensive and time consuming, and is that in and of itself, that there should be some supervision over these decisions, because they're life altering.
And that's why the appeals process, and that's why it needs to get taken out of her hands. I would like to think anybody else in that circuit or another circuit would go, why did you do this, Judge? And my idea of railroading is it's predetermined. That woman was going to put him in jail from day one. It was just a matter of how long. It's like a movie I watched not too long ago. It was a comedy, but they said, take that guy out and shoot him. He goes, well, I think we should have a trial first. He goes, okay, have a trial and then take him out and shoot him. It's predetermined. And you could just tell the things I've read about her, and it's extensive, and people should go out and read about her. And it's just, she just decided that he was going, and she's going to make a name for herself. Now, a lot of people like putting cops in jail because that's cool for their career, and I see that in Dallas too. I've had friends get, assailed like that by the FBI.
Because they make the newspapers.
Yeah. And they get reelected or reappointed or whatever, but I don't think Ron DeSantis has a clue about this woman. I really don't.
Yeah.
Except
You think he innocently just went, oh, let's have, she's the woman and we want a diversity hire, I'm just throwing things out that he could have done, or it could have just been brought to him. Hey, this is somebody, and it could be someone he trusts that suggested her.
We call that brother-in-lawing down here in Texas.
Yeah. and so going forward, you're already 2 trials in, you have an appeal possible, right?
Oh yeah, we have a appeal in process right now. And there's, if it's reversed, it could get reversed back to her for a 3rd trial, which seems crazy to me. I'm actually surprised that there wasn't a pause between the 2 trials, because she's the one that declared the 2nd trial. Like, the state attorney's office didn't even get to say, hey, we want to refile charges or pursue it.
Yeah.
She made that decision. So,
and just said, here's a day, which is, I added that to my list of no time to prepare the 2nd attorney.
I don't know, has anyone heard of back-to-back trials within a week of each other? I mean, everything else took an extraordinary amount of time, like to get the sentencing and all of these other things done. But she was able to do a 2nd trial. She was ready to do it the next day. That didn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's wild. And so what's your hope going forward, and what maybe suggestions do you have, Rich? I'm going to ask Sarah first about her hope going forward, and maybe even how this audience could help you. How could people help you get this story out there?
at this point, we do have to wait for the appeal. The only person that could possibly even intervene at this point would be the governor, providing a pardon or a clemency or converting, commuting the sentence. Writing letters to his office or to the Attorney General is Ashley Moody, and she's ultimately like the head justice person for the state of Florida. And also, I kind of feel like the state attorney's office should answer for what they've, their part in this. Dave Aronberg is the 15th Circuit state attorney. So the people under him are the ones who we faced off in the trials with. Is he aware that these things have gone on? Like, somebody needs to review this case, whether it's his office or whether it's Ashley Moody's office, but writing letters to them to point out this crazy activity. I mean, that is just doesn't seem normal. I know we're not in a normal world right now, but anything to bring attention to this will help, because their side has been told. This is probably the first time that Jerry's side has been told.
What about you, Rick? What are you thinking? How do we help her?
I believe she covered it. I mean, other than going to DeSantis's office and just sitting in the lobby and going, I want to talk to him, I've got time. That doesn't normally work. I work around, congressmen and senators and governors, and, they're usually not there anyway. But right. Somebody if they could just get his ear and just go, do you know this is going on? And I've done that with a congressman or a senator here in Texas. I go, did you know this was happening? And he was like, what are you talking about? And it's shocking to him. And it's on their watch, and he may have picked the person I was talking about. I don't know if he did. And he goes, right. I will look into it. And he did. That person was not removed, but punished. Right. But I was like, do you know this is going on? And it takes a lot for me to do that, but I'll do this for her and him, and happily. And it's just.
Yeah. So in my mind, then, Sarah, I will write down in the description box and in the very top comment the specific people that anyone who feels led can write a letter, send an email, call and leave a message, and just ask for people or ask for them to be aware of it. What would be the perfect wording, Rich? You would probably know, like, what should the letter say? Like, what are we asking for?
Sarah's already written a very eloquent letter, which is way more eloquent than I could. But it just the facts, and she did put just the facts. And, these letters, I wrote one to a corporation that made me mad the other day. I won't say who they are. And I wrote it to their CEO, knowing full well he's never going to see it. Right. Some administrator is going to see it. It was a human resources complaint. And I had to get an attorney, because if you don't have one, like Jerry was about to not have one, you have a fool for a client, me. So I'm paying $5,000 to complain on this employee or two employees at this company.
To make sure you do it properly.
Yeah, because I don't know procedure,
Sure.
I think I do. And a lot of people, these judges, you've seen the shows where the guys kill a bunch of people and they go, I want to represent myself. And the judge is like, that's fine, but you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
We don't know procedures. Yes.
And so something as simple as, are you aware of Jerry Alderman's case? There's a police officer who's been accused of these things. There was no assault. There was no video allowed in court. There was no proof of intoxication. There was no expert witness allowed. There was
no chain of custody.
He had to testify against himself. He had no Fifth Amendment rights. There was no bond allowed. There was an affidavit that hid things. There was no attorney prep for the second court case. There was no chain of custody for the cell phone, and there was no backstory allowed.
Yeah,
Well,
there were
from the
videos
jury.
allowed in there, but they didn't allow them all, and they didn't allow what we wanted to submit. So
Okay, got it. So it was cherry picked.
very much. They
Okay.
showed what they wanted to show.
And so really all they have to do is say, are you aware of this man in jail and the possible railroading that happened? I mean, really, they don't have to write more than that. But I'll share, the contacts, the addresses, whatever it is that
A
Sarah.
military veteran with an outstanding record. That just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You build that.
Absolutely. Totally agree. And so, and then also people know people, sometimes people are watching this. Someone knows Tucker Carlson, or somebody knows, Tim Cast or whoever. Any large, journalistic outlet would be an also, or high level, YouTubers that work on court cases or things like that. Please reach out to them and just share that you would love to see this on a bigger scale, on a larger platform, on something that could possibly allow for, Ron DeSantis or somebody in that county to know what's going on in this judge's courtroom.
Bongino down in Jacksonville, Dan Bongino will be looking at it on Monday from me.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, we need to get it out of Palm Beach County, because this is where everything, this is the nest, the hive.
Yeah.
I think someone outside of this county needs to take a look at this to see if everything was handled properly.
Dan was a New York cop for 7 years and a Secret Service agent for, I think, 14 years. He knows cops, and I know him. I've worked with him, and he is pro cop, and he hates this not more than me, but he hates this. We don't like, this is just a travesty.
Yeah, he would be a great one because he has a large reach also. Is there anything else I'm not thinking of? Any way that people can help support you?
I'm starting a GoFundMe, because there's, as Rich mentioned, they've pretty much taken everything. And I had to liquidate just about everything in order to pay for multiple attorneys and trials and appeals and all this stuff. So I'll get that link to you if anyone feels led to give. We are still have an uphill battle ahead of us, no matter which way it goes. I have strong faith. I have a great church and family. I have a great family, I have a great group of friends supporting us and getting us through this. But every little bit helps.
Yeah. Oh, there's echo. Don't know what happened. So thank you so much, both of you, for being here. Rich, do you have any last words, or like kind of a summary or a wrap up for us?
No, just people, please support the aldermans. They need it. They need your prayers. They can use your money at the GoFundMe, and they need your letters.
All right. That's perfect. Thank you so much, both of you, for being here. And I will be forwarding this on to Sean Atwood and a few other people that I know. You never know. Hopefully, somebody will pick it up and you'll get a little bit more attention sent towards DeSantis. And hopefully he doesn't know, hopefully he's like, oh yeah, we need to fix this. But I know we, like Sarah said, we're living in strange times. And so prayer would be probably one of the most powerful things that you can do for Sarah and her husband, Jerry. So thank you all for being here. And please, if you could just take the time to send a letter just for awareness, it's literally coming down it's coming towards all of us. And we've got to help the people on the front lines, who are the first ones that are hitting upon this unfair judicial BS. So thank you, everybody. I hope you all have a great weekend.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you
me.
so much.